Good morning again, Scott here, known as Cantaloupe to some online, and I'm bringing a video to you on a subject that's interesting to me. It might be of interest to you or someone you know, and I want to talk about communism in this video. I want to talk about classic communism and some confusion because it seems like people are overcomplicating the idea, and everything I've heard growing up and in school, on TV and movies, I don't think explains it very well, and it's a very simple idea. The difference between capitalism and communism is very simply to open with this idea that you should decide what sells versus letting money decide what sells. It's that simple. It is that simple. Deciding with leadership and conscious choice by leadership what should be sold rather than letting everything and anything be sold because it has to be, because people have to coin up. Business owners, workers, employees, the average consumer has to coin up, earn a living, and we just let the process run itself, basically. That's called the open market, right? The free market. Our country took the path of least resistance, and this is going to be kind of my biggest point in the video. The United States saw an opportunity to leverage some short-term profit by way of capitalism. And the early architects of this country decided to, be strong, to be robust, to be profitable, of course. And the best way, and the most efficient and quick way you could do that is by having an open market where everything is agnostic. There's no, decision being made necessarily about what can sell or what can't sell, except for certain banned items, contraband or prohibited things that are regulated, such as powerful drugs or weapons, certain things that are deemed too dangerous to be accessible by the common public, the common person. So we have this enormous legal system to address the problems that arise. Invariably, it's actually just part of our economy. The legal system is part of our economy. It is basically designed to address regulation or regulatory legislation as to what should be sold or can be sold or cannot be sold. But this is all a reaction. It's a reaction to the open market itself. It's a reaction to our design of economics. Whereas the alternative, and this is what I was surprised when I finally learned what communism is, and that is deciding what sells before any of this. So before it gets to market, you recognize, you get your list of essential services, your essential businesses, and some that may not be essential but are nice to haves kind of thing, like entertainment is essential, but spin-off entertainment businesses, whatever, for example. You get your list together and you say, these are the things we're going to subsidize. And instead of people paying the businesses who have to then, force people to work for them at gunpoint, because if they don't, then they end up destitute or dead or arrested or selling something illegal. Instead of doing that, you pay an authority who manages the essential businesses, who subsidizes them. They give the businesses and the people subsidies. So there's a program that you may have heard of called UBI, Universal Basic Income, which connects with this idea. It's socialistic communism, where you would get a cash stipend. And before you jump down my throat and say that people aren't equal, people don't deserve an equal share, I didn't say that you would get an equal share. This is just a safety net. The idea in principle, a working idea. And I'm not talking about Karl Marx's flavor of communism. I'm talking about an actual practical version where people would get basic subsidies for food, shelter, clothing, optional education, retirement at some point, basic health care, some level of basic working health care, electricity, internet, clean water, and just the basic human needs provided, guaranteed, so that you can first choose to work. Now here's where it gets interesting. This is where this program actually gets interesting, as opposed to what we're doing. You choose, if you want, to increase your level of involvement in a company or a project. You care, because you made this choice, about the quality of the product. You care enough to involve yourself so that you can be compensated on top of your stipend, on top of your basic income. You can earn, just as you do now, all of the luxuries that you want. You can buy yourself a boat. You can buy yourself that big mansion. Get yourself a big, huge TV and a family and live happily and earn it properly. The only difference is you have chosen to do this, and you don't die necessarily if you fail to choose to do this. So, again, in summary, and I don't want this to be a gigantic deep dive into communism versus capitalism, but the difference is simpler than you think. It's simpler than most people are told. It is simply deciding what is proper to sell, deciding what is essential and what is nice, versus forcing everybody to make everything that they possibly can just to pay their bills. Because you end up with tons and tons of stuff, more stuff than people want, more stuff than they need. And you end up with this pharmaceutical nightmare that we have going on. You end up with, pornography and, weapons just taking over the place. And you end up with all of the things that are the product of late-stage capitalism. And you could have predicted this. How did you predict this? How could you have? It was the path of least resistance. That's how you knew. It was the short-term profit model. It was harder. That's how you knew. I'm sorry. Communism would have been harder. It would have been uphill, and there are a lot more pitfalls, right? There are a lot of challenges and design requirements to make it work. It has failed in other places because of failure to manage it properly, failure for administrators and centralized authorities to coordinate in a way that's efficient and transparent enough that it works. So, if everything just falls into an opaque file cabinet like it did in the Soviet Union, nobody knows anymore, and it all becomes about corruption and bribery and breadlines. And hey, newsflash, we got breadlines here. If we're trying to avoid the breadlines, bro, have you looked out your window lately? Have you looked out the window of your diesel truck? If you're living large enough, on your way down to the golf course, have you checked out the breadlines? Because we have them on every corner up here. Every town up here has breadlines. So if that's our main reason for not thinking or talking about communism, I say essential services are looking a lot better at this time. I think that subsidies, basic provision for human needs, food, shelter, clothing, all that stuff, is looking pretty good. So that, you're not going to, die if you can't or don't want to work. And at the same time, if it's a working system for the last time, you can earn more on top of that with the opportunity to earn more through your employer. There is a working system. This one cannot continue. It's what we call unsustainable. Capitalism is unsustainable, and this is why it has been resisted by these countries. China. Is China full of idiots? I don't think so. We used to say that. Was Russia full of idiots? We used to say so. No, they're not, actually. North Korea? That's another big country, and they're communist. Cuba? Some Central American country? Okay, so Iran? Are all these countries crazy? You tell me. Is half the world completely batshit crazy? Because right there, that seems suspect. There's a problem with that logic. If half the world is upset about capitalism, if half the world is upset, not just because of our prosperous situation in the U.S., and yes, we are, if they're upset on an ideological level that we're cutting in line, cutting a corner, cutting through living flesh, cutting through their territory and their ability to do things properly, not just with our policies, but with our operations as well, with our involvement in their business. If they're upset, maybe we should hear that. Maybe they have a point. Why aren't we hearing it? Where is the news about communism? Where is the explanation, like I just gave you, that it's really just about deciding preemptively what's proper, rather than letting the dollar decide? The dollar doesn't have a mind. It doesn't have a sense of propriety or good or evil. It doesn't have a sense of what's toxic, what's healthy. It doesn't have a sense of love or humanity. The dollar shouldn't be choosing for us. And that should have been obvious. Reach out if you like with questions or comments to whitehotrobot@gmail.com. Thank you.